Hello everybody, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. Now today we're going to be checking out a budget smartphone because these days we've been checking out so many of the latest flagships of 2022. But today, here we are going to be checking out the Realme 9i that is going to be launching in Malaysia really soon. So according to Realme Malaysia, this device here will be officially launched on the 19th of January. But today we're really here to find out how far has budget smartphones gone or reached in the year of 2022. So bear in mind, just in terms of pricing, obviously I do not have the pricing for this guy yet. But according to Realme, the price will definitely be below 1,000 ringgit. So this is definitely going to be slightly like a budget or a slightly higher than budget kind of a smartphone over here. Now, just in terms of the Realme 9i, I have actually already unboxed this. So let me just share with you a couple of key specifications that is on the box right here so you can actually have a brief idea on what to expect from the Realme 9i. First up, we do have the Snapdragon 680 processor. It also says here it comes with a 33-watt dart charge, a 5000 mAh battery, and last but not least, a 50 megapixel AI triple camera. So that's the kind of specifications that you can expect from this budget kind of smartphone. But yeah, let's also see what else came inside the box of this Realme 9i. So very quickly, I'm just going to unbox this. Yes, again, I have already unboxed it, but let me show you what's actually inside this very difficult to open box. First up, yes, it does say here, hey, welcome to the Realme family. We do get a case in the box. My version is actually this very interesting blue. It's a light blue kind of color, which I will share a little bit more on later. And of course, in the box, you do get this 33-watt fast charger as well as the Type-C cable. So that's all that you get in the box. There is no earphones in the box. That's it. Alright, so very quickly, let's move on to the device itself. Now, this is the Realme 9i that I was just mentioning about. And the key thing, the most important thing about this smartphone right here is that it is the first smartphone in Malaysia to launch with the Snapdragon 680 budget kind of processor. So let's talk a little bit about that very quickly. Before we do that, let's take a look at the design of the Realme 9i. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, my device here is in this blue. It's called the Prism Blue. And if you take a look at the back, you can notice that there is a couple of lines to actually create that kind of prism effect. Whenever you shift the device from left to right, you also see a lot of reflections going on. To me, I think it's quite a decent looking design. Apart from that, it's also worth mentioning that the back panel here is actually matte and it's very smooth to the touch, but it does capture quite a fair bit of fingerprints on the back panel itself. In terms of the thickness levels, it looks all right here. Definitely not too thick as well as not too thin. Like I mentioned, we do have a 5000 mAh battery inside, so at this kind of thickness and weight, I think it's quite acceptable because it is actually quite light. Now, moving on to the sides here, on the left, you do have your volume rocker, and on the right, you have that power button together with that fingerprint sensor. Moving down to the bottom here, you can see that we have the Type-C port, we have stereo speakers, and we also have the headphone jack at the bottom. So that's definitely a very nice welcome on the Realme 9i. Now, done with the design, let's talk very quickly about the display. As soon as you flip the device to the front, this is where you are greeted with the 6.6-inch 1080p IPS LCD display that actually refreshes at 90 Hz. So with this 90 Hz refresh rate, obviously everything is going to be quite smooth. I wouldn't say it's super smooth like a 120 Hz refresh rate display, but at this kind of price point and for a budget smartphone, I think 90 Hz is the bare minimum, because if the processor is not powerful enough, you will not feel that sluggishness because everything just feels very smooth on the display, and I love that about the Realme 9i. Alright, now let's move on and talk a little bit about the next thing here, and that is all about the Snapdragon 680 that comes on board. Now, bear in mind that apart from the Snapdragon 680, you also get a choice of 4GB of RAM or 6GB of RAM, and in terms of storage options, you also have 64GB or 128GB. I definitely recommend you to get the 128GB version because 64GB is just too little. Now, the good news here is that the phone also supports expandable micro SD, so you can always pop in that memory card to expand the storage of your Realme 9i. Now, as I was mentioning, in terms of performance, how good is the Snapdragon 680? Now, just in terms of benchmark scores, I did a very quick one and compared it with the previous Snapdragon 662, and I was able to see approximately 10 to 20% increase in terms of performance between these processors. So that's definitely a good thing. If you're just using day-to-day tasks like launching your Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all that, everything actually launches pretty smoothly and fast. I wouldn't say it's super fast like a mid-range or a premium level kind of device, but for a budget device, I think the Snapdragon 680 is definitely pushing it one step further. That means everything is just a little bit more quicker without much lags or delays. Now, in terms of gaming, Well, I actually tried out 2 games over here. First up, Mobile Legends would run on a maximum settings. It goes all the way up to ultra graphic settings. It even supports the high frame rate on the Realme 9i. And overall, I was able to get a pretty decent gaming experience on the Realme 9i. However, when you go for the highest maximum graphics, this phone, the Realme 9i, is not really made to handle the most or the strongest graphic level. So actually, I would still recommend you to drop it down to medium to actually get the best, smoothest gaming experience. Now, moving on to PUBG, the graphics will only go up to balance. And if you check out the screen here, you only get a medium frame rate for that particular game. So if you are a strong or hardcore PUBG gamer, you won't be able to get the maximum out of the Realme 9i. But again, that is to be expected with a budget phone like this. Overall, if you just play games normally or occasionally, the Realme 9i here would still take you throughout the entire experience without much issues. So that is just in terms of the user experience with the Snapdragon 680. Now moving on, let's talk very quickly about the cameras that we have on the back here. Yes, you do get a triple camera setup led by a 50 megapixel main sensor. You also have a 2 megapixel depth sensor and a 2 megapixel macro lens. So what this means is that the main sensor is the main thing that you will want to use because that's the only one that's quite useful. And if you take a look at a couple of photos here that I'm going to share with you right now, you can see that the pictures taken by the Realme 9i looks average at best. You can't really expect spectacular kind of performance from the cameras of these kind of budget smartphones, but overall, I think if it's just sharing on social media or maybe just sending to your friends and all that, I think it would be fine. You might want to actually adjust a little bit of the exposure because I noticed on sometimes the pictures do look a little bit overexposed. But yeah, a little bit of editing will definitely help to create a better image from the Realme 9i. Now last but not least, before I end, let's talk a little bit about the haptics and the audio coming out from this Realme 9i. Now in terms of the haptics, it's getting the basic kind of vibrating motor, so you can't expect those really short and crisp kind of vibrations. But the good news here is that in terms of the audio quality, the stereo speakers were surprisingly very loud. You can also notice here that, like I mentioned earlier, we have a headphone jack at the bottom, so all of you guys out there who still likes to use wired earphones, you can do that using the Realme 9i. Alright, so last but not least, let's talk a little bit about the battery. We do have a 5000 mAh battery on board, paired with the 33-watt fast charge charger that came in the box. Now, I wasn't able to test out the full charging speeds yet, but I will definitely let you know a little bit more on that in the full review. Alright guys, I think that's pretty much what I have to share. A first look or a first impressions on the Realme 9i. Overall, I just think that it's always good to see brands pushing it further with their budget smartphones because not everyone today can afford like a mid-range device or even a flagship device for that matter. And for the fact that they are putting in the Snapdragon 680, again the first here in Malaysia, I think it's definitely good to always see a performance being pushed one step further. Let me know what you guys think about the Realme 9i. Is this something that you might consider? Are you still the kind of user who actually still purchases budget smartphones? Let me know what kind of devices you guys purchase. And yeah, I do hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, sub to the channel, and I hope to see all of you guys in the next one. Stay safe everybody. Bye!